resonated for me. I actually started in operations and in ops, and then I ran a startup studio. I took over 2 developers, and we were just trying to work out how to ship products for entrepreneurs. And over time, like now I say, oh, I've got 13 years in product, but the real irony is product doesn't exist 13 years ago. It wasn't product, it was something else. And how those skills have distilled are not any different to what I developed in operations or system optimization or trying to run an agency. A lot of that thinking is just very repetitive, and it's actually stolen the core product principles and ideology is actually stolen or built on the shoulders of giants in other fields, in UX, in agile, in business, like strategy,
project management,
those sorts of things. So there's always so much transferable skills. So people put like product, oh, I've got all this product experience on a box as if it's something special, but it's really just a repackaging of a whole bunch of different skills. So don't feel too much like an imposter. Anyone who says too intensely that this is the only way is just flat out wrong.
Thanks, Roger.
Hey guys, hey PIP Ops team. I see you've just joined. I'm just kind of winging it. Hi everyone. Hi Best. Hi Emery. Hi Onedika. Some familiar faces here. Sorry, I'm just pulling up the list of names to get everyone. Mamueli, Mamuyowi, and Alawi. What? Alawi. Alawi. Hi.
Alawi. Hi. Hello.
Alawi. Sorry, it's my lazy tongue.
You fine. Can just call me Lily.
Lily. What would you like to know tonight, Lily? What's on your mind?
Okay. So I'm somebody that I was previously a project manager for a construction company for about 5 years before deciding to move into tech. And I think this is my 3rd year as a product manager and all. So I think one thing I'm having a problem with, because the new company I just joined about 3 months ago, it's a startup per se, so there's not really like a structured team all around. So it's just everybody, you just gotta do what you have to do to get the work done and all. And I don't know, maybe my old career, even when I was a project manager and even when I started product management and all, I worked they are not really big. They're like companies with like over 600 employees. So they were like a bit of like structured in place. So as a project manager, I wasn't really, I didn't really have to like do all the research. There was like a proper research team. There was a proper design team. There were all those things in place. So like, I feel like my job was literally to manage and just, manage the whole project. There was not really a lot of, and just do the product side, but there's not really a lot of, diving into doing your market research yourself, doing design yourself, doing the mock-ups yourself and things like that. So I feel like because I was really excited to work at a startup. I feel like that was like one of my plans that year.
Why?
It just felt like, I don't know, it just felt like at least this industry in Nigeria, I feel like most big brands, they kind of like want somebody that has like experience working in a startup because they think, you know how to get the work done when you have to get it done because you work at the startup and all. That's how I feel. I don't know if everybody agrees with that, but that is how I feel and all. And I feel like one thing I struggled with when I joined like a few months ago was having to do all of that because I think the last time I actually carried out an interview myself because the interview gets done with like the research team and things like that. But like probably maybe 3 years ago, something like that. So I felt like I've literally forgotten, they just give me the data and I process the data and move forward and things like that. I felt like I'd really forgotten how to do like the gritty works of further management and all. And I feel like that is what I'm getting to use because now I have to create mock-ups. Now I have to conduct interviews, surveys, and things like that. I have to go out and do market research. And I feel like it makes me feel like I'm back to being a 1-year product manager. So that's just like what's on my mind. Like, is there a way to? It just feels like a lot of work. I mean, I expected it, but I don't know at the same time.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. But that's a benefit. So if you look at why, so the one comment that you said people like you having startup experience on your CV because you know how to get things done. But it's actually not so much. It's yes, your ability to get things done because you can't rely on massive teams. But the forcing function of startups is you don't have enough resources, you don't have enough time, you don't have enough runway. But what that means is it forces you to do two things. One, it forces for you to very quickly identify what's most important. And two, very quickly change or act on what you've just learned. And those two things of being able to identify, like when you're working in massive companies and everyone's just following a process, and it's just so easy to jump on the conveyor belt and churn through. But
back now.
Most of it is not valuable at all. Most of it is fluff and process for the sake of fluff and process, and most of the products get so beaten by bureaucracy and committees and different opinions that they come out half-baked. It's really not that spectacular at the end.
Whereas
the startups, if you do that, you die. It's really that simple. So that's a really great forcing function. And so what I would encourage you to do is remember that it might feel like you're going down to the beginning, but what you're really doing is you're learning how to be super effective with your time and focus on what is most important. Have I learned what I need to learn, and can I move on? And so you end up not getting stuck in the process of good rigor of research and practice, like a research methodology. You don't get lost in that. You just, I need to find value for customers that we can sell something that they will pay for. That's all I need to do. The purpose of these conversations is to learn that. Once I've learned that, I'm moving on. And that is the benefit of things. So that's the first part. The second part is just complete overwhelm and under-resourced. But that's also a forcing function to help you design systems and kind of work out, like, what is this process trying to achieve, and then how do I adapt it to a shorter time frame, or to less data, or to what I need to work with. And so that kind of teaches you to, like, you can't just take a framework off the shelf and roll it out, because it's inevitably just a massive waste. So what it means is you need to pull it out and go, hold on, might this work for me? And if so, why would it work? Why would it not work? And so you actually gain a much deeper understanding of the methodologies and frameworks and tools, because you're just using them to solve a problem, and you're working out very quickly when they don't work and why they don't work. And so when you go back to a corporate, those two things of being able to find the signal in the noise really effectively, and being able to reason through which methodology is more applicable because of a certain application and use case, that's what you're really here to learn, right? And that's what you're going to learn in a startup.
I agree. Thank you so much.
So it does feel like a lot of overwhelm, but all that means for me is you're still practicing that muscle of filter, of working out what's most important, letting balls drop, and ultimately working out how do you deliver value to customers in a way that makes money. Like that's the question you need to stick on your laptop on a little sticky note. Like, how do we deliver value to customers in ways that make money? Like, that's what you're trying to solve. And so every interview you do, every question, delivering the product is good enough when it does that. Until you've got much more teams and much more funding and like recurring customers, then you can focus on optimization and cleanup and those sort of things. But in the early stages, it's so ruthless on just focus on value delivery, value creation, and value capture. So how do you create value for customers, and how do you capture that value back?
Keep that in mind. Thank you.
Yeah, generally, if you can focus on that, then like your priorities will kind of sort themselves out, and the busy work just disappears very quickly off a very long to-do list. That you can just delete your to-do list every 2 weeks. If it's important, it'll come back up.
Okay. I'll do that. I'll try that. Thank you.
Hi, hello, everybody. Any other questions or thoughts? Demilada, I see you DMing me in the group. Do you want to pop a question in here? Oh, there's one for the today. Onyedika. Hi, my week has been great so far. It's been a little chaotic, but it's been really good. Today was very long, with lots of meetings. Question for today: how do you put yourself out there as a PM? Best channels and artifacts to show competency. Onyedika, why are you trying to show competency? Are you trying to build a following? Are you trying to build thought leadership, or are you trying to build a portfolio to land you another job?
I would say portfolio for now.
Cool. So portfolio, you want to show, like, how would you want to create some kind of evidence of how you deliver, how would you solve the problems in a company? That's what the portfolio is trying to showcase. To say, hey, if you bring me, I can do these types of things in your company. Or here's a showcase of my skills. So the way I would reflect that is reverse engineer it to say, what kind of skills do I want people to want to hire me for? Is it for my design skills? Is it for my business acumen and strategy? Is it for my research skills? Is it for my UI, UX, like product design skills? Like which parts of those do I want to actually highlight in this portfolio, and use that as a filter to decide what it is that you should be building. So if it's like, oh, I want to be able to show that I'm more than just a junior PM, that I can think strategically. It's like, great, let's do competitor analysis or do value stream mapping of different businesses, and write some kind of insight of the value of the one or the other. Or if you took Uber's business model and applied it to Wemmer Bank, like how would you do that? What does that look like? How do you take the mechanics of one business model and apply it to the mechanics of another? A profile like that will show strategic thought and being able to apply a problem like into different problem spaces around business and strategy. If it's customer research, it's pick a user journey of one of your favorite apps, go and interview a bunch of other customers or people who use that sort of app, get their feedback around the pain points, do a little report of these are the areas, these are the pain points reported. I chatted to 10 people, they all said these things, or these are the highest requested features. This is what that feature might look like. Here's 2 or 3 prototypes of me designing it. This is what a finished product might look like and why I discarded the other things. That would show a really great thing of like, hey, I can do this for your company. I can help you streamline your process. So depending on what you're trying to actually showcase in your portfolio is what you should spend the time doing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Very insightful. Thanks.
Cool. Anyone else got tips or ideas? I'm definitely not the expert on portfolio building. I haven't built a portfolio in my life. Devisa?
So, Temisa, if you're speaking, I can't hear you. I see his mic is on mute, but I personally can't hear him.
I can't hear him either. If you're speaking, check your settings. Anyone else? Damilare, I saw you dropped a question in there. I read a book on Scrum by Jeff Sutherland, and I kind of understand it, but I still don't know the things to learn, where to learn from, and how to practice them. Is there a way you can help? Yeah, well, yeah, getting in tips. Actually, I haven't got into a PM ever really. I kind of fell into it backwards. But anyone on the call have tips on where are good resources nowadays to go and learn entry level stuff about PMing? I'm assuming other than courses, there are definitely some courses around. The Treffin group has some. There's a product guide. You were very loud and then you went very quiet. Anyway, so yeah. So I mean, if anyone else isn't going to help me out here, I'm going to give you some very generic suggestions. I would recommend like Emmanuel. Go ahead.
Yes. So Demilade, I think that the first thing you should do, like as a starting point, I think you should even read the book called The Mom Test. I'll send it to you. That's like the very basic place to start. Like read the Mom Test. For me, because I'm a career switcher, what I found was very helpful for me. I identified what kind of PM I wanted to be, because that's very helpful. Do you want to be a core PM? Do you want to be an innovative PM, innovation PM? Do you want to be an analytics PM? So you need to know where you want to go. That would guide your focus. So the next step for me was, I don't know if you're currently working now. If you're currently working now in an organization, I would suggest that you do some job shadowing on with the product team. So you can just go to the product team and say, oh, hey, I'm trying to switch into product management. And can I spend like 10 hours a month or 12 hours a month job shadowing and just attending a few of your meetings, just getting myself up to speed, understanding different things, and getting my hands in the mud for you guys, it's a good starting point. If you're not currently working, I would suggest you look on Medium, look on LinkedIn. There are tons of articles, and then look on Google as well. So like the way you should approach it, don't try to go and follow everybody on LinkedIn. I notice people will just be trying to follow everybody on LinkedIn. For example, people will say, oh, follow Powell, follow this. Powell is really very advanced, and not like he doesn't share product 101 stuff, but he shares stuff for people that are ready, in their career. So look for people who share stuff about product 101, i.e., I'm trying to enter product management, and those people just share entry-level product management stuff on LinkedIn. Check on Google, check on Medium. I'm happy to sort of sidebar later, and just sort of talk you through it if there's any way I can sort of just help, and some resources that I have used that helped me. And then once you've been able to digest and understand that, then you can go and get your hands in a boot camp. Like, you can do like a course. Pendo, Utiva has a course. There are a few people that offer all those courses. So I'll just first say, try to learn as much as you can first before you go into doing a course, because people make the mistake to rush to do a boot camp and then they still are confused. If you already have some basic knowledge, when you go to the boot camp, then it starts to, that aha moment comes, because everything starts to click, like, oh, I read that, oh, I understand this now. So this is one of the tricks that I use to sort of just help me. And then obviously I've been working very close to the product and engineering teams at the different organizations I worked. But I don't know if that's helpful for you. If not, please let's connect in Slack, and then we can just sort of progress from there. Thanks, Roger.
Yeah. So a friend of mine, Nandi Azodo, is also like super amazing at this stuff. His website currently seems to be down as .com. I'm just trying to find it up on the side, but I've just put his Twitter handle in the or X, whatever you call it these days, in the chat. I know he's got a course on getting into entry-level product management and deals with a bunch of product management questions, so he would probably be a good resource as well. As Nella says, part of why I'm struggling is most of the people I would recommend are going to be well above the level that you're trying to hit at, which is why I'm sort of struggling a bit. There is a book, Good Product, Bad Product, by James Adam. That could be an interesting one to read as well. But otherwise, there's so much information out there on YouTube, on blogs, on a number of sources like that, where you can just get some very great entry level, like what is Scrum, what is Kanban, what is product, and then pick up a term and just type that into Google and just watch a couple of series and watch a couple of episodes or read some write-ups about it. There's like 101s type stuff. There's so much content out there. Cool. Does that answer your question, Demilada? Does it give you some pointers? Otherwise, in the Slack channel, in the learning resources Slack channel, people throw great resources all the time of varying levels, often sort of more entry-level stuff. So you can probably find some really great stuff there. Cool. Yeah, Powell is great. If you're looking for more senior people, Powell is great. Shreyas Doshi is great. There's a guy from Amplitude. John Cutler is great. Lenny's newsletter, Lenny's podcast is like the absolute gold.
Oh yes,
I'm enjoying this stuff so much. I consume it every day. In fact, I can't keep up with all this top stuff that comes out of there. But that's generally aimed at more senior people. You're not gonna, at entry level, it's just gonna be complete jargon to you. Cool. Anthony has a question in the chat. Where I work, we're a very small team that is currently building a product, outsourced software development company. And I'm the one managing the project, more like the person making sure the software development team is meeting the requirements of the business. But I wanted to grow into a proper product manager. Please, how do I go about it? Because I'm already getting involved in design sprints, i.e. with a software development company. Yeah, sure. So, sorry, just Damilada, I am Roger Nort everywhere. LinkedIn, Medium, you can find me anywhere on that. Yeah, so if you're working with an external company, they probably have some product people on their side. I'm assuming they have a project manager or admin on that side. So you can definitely try and shadow them, and just be open with them. Say, hey, I'm a project manager wanting to learn more about this product stuff. Please help me see it. There is some interesting resources. There's a book called Sprint, which was written by two guys who were at Google at the time. They now do some other stuff. But that kind of gives you the product development process and how to iterate and test new ideas. So that's very much of testing new ideas. I think the space that you're playing in is more around like how do you manage an outsourced dev team in a product way. I assume they're working in 2-week sprints. That's the regular cadence. Can be 1 week, can be 4, but it's normally around 2. What I think is important for you to shift in your mindset is instead of trying to scope them requirements, scope them outcomes or deliverables. So say at the end of the sprint, I want to be able to do this, this, and this. And so try and shift your language to outcomes instead of outputs. And it's such like a small thing, but it completely changes what success looks like. Success is not, did you do this design with that button? Success is, can the user sign up and create an account bug-free? Like, and it kind of encapsulates so much more than that. So when you start thinking about like, and even like, people get caught in this trap of like user stories as well, that user stories become super functional, and it's not supposed to be functional. It's supposed to be what is the outcome that the user gets at the end of this journey. And so it's supposed to be more fluffy. It's supposed to be like, what is the expectation of that user? Not, I click on this button and that happens, then this happens, and I get that. If you're writing your user stories like that, you're probably doing it wrong. And your developers are probably just feature factory developers, not delivering real value. Can you still hear me? Someone seems to be gonna run away.
Yes, I can hear you.
Anthony, does that answer your question? That's like just one tip, but it makes a huge difference. Cool. I will try and list those people now quickly. Let me just find you one more link. There's one thing that might help you. So I wrote an article a little while ago on like the principles of kind of great product teams. So this is coming from a slightly different angle, but it's a sorry, just go back to the stories. It's coming from a slightly different angle where I often have to deal with like teams trying to work out, do we use this framework or that framework, or do we use like this road mapping tool or that road mapping tool? And so people often struggle to like evaluate which methodologies or frameworks are most effective for them. And the answer there is always, it depends. So what I did was, so typically how I approach that is to look at, is to compare that to like, what would an ideal product team look like? What are the principles and values that team would have? How do we evaluate this current team against those values? And then how do we use our weaknesses in those areas in order to use that as a rubric to decide which framework? Like, we should use Kanban if we need more fluidity and more experimentation and less, like if we're getting caught up in bureaucracy, Kanban is a great way of breaking that because it just does away with a lot of that. If we feel like we need to be more, have more clear deliverables, but allow us to experiment and have flexibility, then like a Scrum methodology is better. So depending on the tensions that you have. So this is a post I wrote a little while ago. I'll throw it in the chat here. But what you can do as well, sorry, I think that's the Meet link. It didn't copy it all. What you can do is look at that list and think, how can I be more of these with the outsourced dev team? So how can we be more outcome focused? How can we be more experimental? How can I brief them a way that gives them a little bit of leeway or creativity in how to solve that problem and coming up with a better solution? Or how do we actually buy co-design time? So people often say, oh, well, the developers, you only make money from developers when they're actually writing code. And the problem with how most people think, specifically in the outsource, and I used to run an outsourced dev house, and how people used to, I didn't run one, but it was similar. But how people see it is they see developers only add value by writing code, and that's not true at all. Developers deliver value by outputting valuable solutions or the right solutions to customers. And the best way to get them to build something incredibly useful is to get them to deeply understand the context, which often means taking the developers along for custom interviews or for watching a customer trying to use the prototype and seeing it just flat out fail. Is the developer's like, oh my God, I can totally fix this. I just need to move these buttons and fix this thing. And they fix it on the spot. And so often, and even if it doesn't happen quickly, it helps to get them a mental model of how to solve the problem better in the future. So even getting developers from the outsourced dev team to be part of your design process. Say, hey, we're going to buy 2 weeks of your time and I don't expect you to write code. Or for these first 3 days, we're not going to write code. We're going to run a design session. I'm going to run you through what the experimentation is and take your input and how we can scope those features. Like something like that is very untraditional and it feels like a waste because you're buying these developers time that aren't writing code. But what you need to try and do is shift the developers towards value creation, not lines of code creation. It's not always possible, and the powers that be who are actually paying the money will probably vehemently disagree because of their mindsets and their backgrounds. But like I found that to be like difficult to quantify upfront, but immeasurably valuable when you actually get it right. So yeah, follow those principles if that's wrong. Cool. Okay, it looks like Anthony's question has been answered. Stephanie, can you maybe just message me in the question channel on the Slack group, and then tomorrow I'll go and I'll find the links and pull out a whole bunch of interesting names for you. Okay, if I try and do it on the fly while I'm answering questions, because I can't multitask, this is going to be very boring for about 10 minutes. Okay. Mama Yovi, do you want to try again? I hope you're not speaking. I can't hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Okay, cool.
Yes, there's lots of feedback.
Okay. Okay, I'll shift to that. It's better. So I have two questions. One is a follow-up on question you just answered, which is if someone is in a mid-level position and he wants to maybe position himself in terms of content writing, maybe on LinkedIn or Medium or any platform, to attract a senior level position, what kind of content do you think would suit that purpose? And two, I work for a fintech company based in East Africa, and our business model is subscription, which is user gets to pay a monthly fee to use the service. So it's a fintech product anyway. We help merchants collect money from their customer, but the challenge that we have currently is we're trying to sort out retention. So our onboarding is good, right? We've done a lot of we're working on our onboarding channel, and so far so good. It's better now, but in terms of retention, the people that will finally onboard, some of them use our products for 1 month, and some go as far as paying 1 more month, right? But a good number of them shown out. We have a number of them, but the majority of them goes off the platform after like 2 months, 3 months, and it has been a challenge. Why? Okay, so from different conversation we've had, there are a lot of things, but one of those is we serve high-end customers. So what that means is if you're using a feature phone, it's very difficult it's impossible to use our app at the moment, or it's impossible for us also collect from you. In mobile money countries, they are focused on in mobile money countries, it's feature phones. They collect from feature phones as for our service. Though we are working on that, but for the meantime, we don't have that at the moment. Merchants not be able to collect money from feature phones, and some merchants are complaining that for the fact that they won't be able to collect money from their customers using feature phones. This is like maybe 50% of the population, right? We don't give them a 360 service. They can only collect from 50% of their customer.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna ask you a question in the background. You just mute yourself. Cool. Okay. Yeah. So I think there's two things in that. I'll answer your second question first. There's two parts to that. The first one is, it sounds like you're an engagement problem, not a retention problem. So it doesn't sound like there's enough value for people to keep coming back. And so you're not keeping them engaged. It's not enough points. It sounds like you're good at acquisition and you're good at activation. So people hear about you, they sign up, they get activated, they'll do 1 or 2 transactions, but they're not doing any more transactions. And the question is, why? What do you need to do to get people to want to get them to have more value by adding more transactions, to get more engagement through it? The retention one is sort of the other lens of looking at it, is like, why do people stop using the product? And so if you interview 50 customers, interview the last 20 or 50 people who stopped using the product in the last 2 months and ask them why, and take their reasons down, cut to them 10, 15 minutes, don't need much more than that. You just need the high level reasons. Put those all into a spreadsheet or into some sort of AI tool that can extract some insights for you. And like, what are the top 10 reasons why people are churning, or top 5 even. And then pick the top 1 or 2 is what you need to tackle next. It sounds like you're not offering a solution that deals with enough of their customer base to justify them having a new payment method on it. Which is like, why would they pay the fees? Why would they go through the hassle? Why would they complicate the checkout process where most of their customers aren't doing that? So how do you offer incentives either for customers to do that, or how do you make it just less hassle, that it works seamlessly with other solutions, that there's other fallbacks? It sounds like, I mean, there are plenty of other payment solutions out there. It sounds like you need to just integrate with a competitor for now, and roll out, hey, if you're on our service, you can use this. If not, click here and use this other app, that eventually you can replace over time. But there's plenty of third-party payment solutions, or that can take direct debits, that can do card payments, that can do mobile money interchanges. So like, see if you can't just wrap one of those other solutions, Paystack or Flutterwave, or like someone who's delivering a checkout process or something in that solution that meets the set of customers you haven't built for yet. And when you eventually build those features, you roll out an update and you remove that functionality, port the information across, and carry on working. That's probably how I'd look at doing it, is trying to analyze why are people churning, interview them, and work out what that list is. And also don't over-engineer it. Like, often solving those problems, there's normally a way to solve the problem in 2 weeks, or like a day, 2 weeks, 2 or 3 months, and then like 12 months. And so what you need to do is say, okay, well, if this is what the problem is, let's work out the 1-day solution, the 2-week solution, the 2-month solution, and the 6-month solution, the 12-month solution. Let's work out what all those options are. How might we solve this if we only have 1 week? How much we solve this if we have those problems? And then you can look at saying, well, can we just ship a light version of what we need now, even a hacky version that fundamentally solves the customer problem, so that they keep using our product? Otherwise, they stop using our product and we die. So like, that's how you need to start thinking about it slightly differently. And that's also the benefit of being problem focused, not solution focused. If you're thinking about, oh, we have to have this payment solution, like, that's the wrong way to think about the problem, the feedback that the customer is telling you. What they're telling you is you don't have enough options to capture the large enough set of customers for me justifying you as a payment option. So what all you need to solve for is, how do we help capture more of their customers' payment options? That's the problem you need to solve, not we have to build this interchange that does all of these things. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. Thanks.
Cool. To your first question. There we go. To your first question of, so once again, a bit more self-promotion. I recently, through People and Product, published an article called What Changes as PM Levels Up. So that unpacks the different levels that I would expect to be able to see from a PM, and how the PM career shifts from junior to mid to senior to an executive level, and how the thinking needs to go. So if you're at a mid-level and you want to start showcasing, what you probably need to do is show mastery of approaches and tools and that sort of thing. So the biggest thing that I find most people at a mid-level, when they try and do this, is they try and like be a thought leader, and you've only got 2 or 3 years experience, you're not a thought leader. You just haven't thought deeply enough about the problems to be that. So they try and write these big, overly complex theoretical posts. And actually, some of the most interesting stuff that I learned from growing up, like through the last couple of years with product, is just watching people build stuff in product, watching people apply a framework in the wild. Like there was one, I think it's dead now, but it was called well, actually, sorry, I said dead. The project is dead. It's now a fully fledged product that I think actually got sold. But the guy was building a health app, and he had like all his notes, and he would blog every week about, this is what I did today, this is what I was working on, this is what I struggled with. Then he went into like pen and paper sketches and some different mock-ups and designs, and then it went into like some higher fidelity designs of different elements, and then he scrapped this and he like redesigned this core component, and then like hacked up a prototype and did that. And each week he published an update of like this design process, and it was one of the most fascinating things to follow. It was like a diary of a person grappling with the stuff that I grappled with every day. And I'm like, oh my God, that's exactly, oh, look how he solved that problem. Oh, and it's like, he threw all this stuff away, and oh, but that is so much better. And thinking about like, oh, he got stuck here, and then he spoke to customers, they said that, and he interpreted this, but I would have actually interpreted that. So it was so interesting to like grapple with the same problems going on the journey that someone has. And I think like for me personally, and that's the kind of mid-level content that would really resonate with peers and people just 1 or 2 notches ahead. To start getting you and building in public is really great to like open yourself up for some feedback and constructive criticism. Hopefully ignore the haters, they don't count. But it's to kind of grapple with that, like show you're working, show the progress, and also just give it in updates. Don't try and give the entire project all at once. Like show the messiness and show where you're stuck, and ask for pointers on how to do the next thing, and then do it and publish that, and then ask for some more feedback. And that kind of publishing in to build a bit of a community and build content. I think Nigerians are great for this. And I say this with love, but they love just like already being a step ahead, and they're so on top of their world, and they're so like in control of themselves, and they can't show weakness. They can't show that the messiness that goes behind it. And I think that kind of vulnerability and that unpacking the process will actually help you stand out really, really in a really interesting way in the local communities. Thumbs up. Little emoji reacting.
Yeah, thanks, Oja.
Good. Lollyfat, you're on my screen. Hello, welcome. Rebecca, welcome. Hi.
Hi, good evening. Thank you.
Mr. Lade, let's go with you, and then I'll go back to Onidika's question.
Okay. Hi, Roger. Good evening. So I have a question, and it's more about from feedback on some interviews I've been having of recent, pretty much mid-level going on senior, and with that comes like lots of experience and lots of battle scars, and in a really niche industry. And I'm speaking with people who really understand what I've been through. So some of the questions I've been getting and the feedback is like you just spoke about, like this person who was making posts about what they were doing and their thought process. And even as you're saying it now, I've found in these interviews, because of how niche the sector is and the experience is, there's really everyone keeps saying use the STAR method and be concise, but there's really no way to tell a story and answer the question in as few words as possible. And that happens to still be the feedback I'm getting after the call. So it's a situation where this is a very niche, specific industry, specific context.
Can you tell me the industry or context?
Payments, B2B payments, and like specific contexts for B2B payments. So it's like we have to understand each other, and the people I'm speaking to understand my context, but it's like, how did you solve this problem, or how did you scale through this thing? And of course, it's because that's a problem they have tackled, or they expect someone coming into the role to tackle. And experience showed me that it's not straightforward to tackle those problems. And I'm also trying to reflect that in the interview answers. I think I got two, like actually last two different companies, and same feedback was like, I could have been more concise and straight to the points. And when I got to the second, I was like, in real life, it didn't work like this way. It never worked this way in real life. I can't give you the templated answer because that's not what will happen if you put me in the role tomorrow.
Yeah, so there's a there's a great YouTube clip of people explaining concepts at different levels, and like it's explained time to a 5-year-old, a 9-year-old, or 10-year-old, 18-year-old, 24-year-old, or like a high school, a high school, a university undergrad, and then a postgraduate, somebody do a doctorate in it. And people have this conversation about time or about the cosmos or about like gravity or some like concept. But I find it so interesting on how the people who have real mastery, you can pull out you don't get lost in the detail because you can't afford to for most of the bottom level. And yes, everything is more complex in reality. It always will be. But the point of them asking those questions in interviews is not to know how to solve the problem. They know this is complex, this is nuanced, and they know that you're not going to answer that. You're not going to solve the problem yet. And even when they ask you, how did you do this? It's less about like the information and more about your approach. And so what people are trying to test in your interviews is, what is your thinking approach? How would you go about solving this problem? Like, how would you think through or rationalize what that looks like? Whether they're asking you to solve a hypothetical problem, or if they're asking you, how did you, like, tell me sometime in your history when you had to overcome adversity, or when something went horribly wrong, or when you shipped a product that absolutely failed. Like all of those things, or what is the most difficult thing you've had to deliver, a challenging problem you've had to overcome. Tell me how you solved it. They don't care about the detail of what that problem was. What they care about is the structure of how you approach the problem and how you went through resolution. So typically when you look at answering a question like that, you want to try and you should definitely practice 2 or 3 of these up front. If you can jot down what those questions are and then write out an answer to it and practice like working out how you can clean it up, just for the structure more than anything else. But think about like, what is the framework? If I had to put it down into 5 steps on how I solve this problem, what would those 5 steps be? And then you can kind of, so when you go to answer that question, you say, well, how I approached it is this way, this way, this way, this way. I did this, then I did this, then I did this, then we did that. And these were the principles. We had to be aware of feedback at each point, or we had to like watch out for this iceberg that we don't hit, like somewhere in the night. And so you can unpack that approach, and then you start unpacking some of the detail for 1 or 2 steps. And then you can pause and say, do you want me to run through the rest of the detail following this process, or are you happy? And 9 out of 10, in fact, 99 out of 100 times, they'll say, okay, no, that's fine. Let's move on to the next question. Because all they want to know is like, how would you approach that problem? They don't really care what the answer is. Does that help?
Mm-hmm. Yes, that helps. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so think about like, how would I explain this to a 5-year-old, or how would I explain this to a 10-year-old in answering this question? Because what that means is you need to abstract it enough. Like, sure, you can use dumbed down language or more complicated language. I forget about that, but you need to dumb down the process into just the high level bits. And then you could totally go into the detail in 1 or 2 steps as they need it. But if you're starting in the detail and the ambiguity and the stuff you're grappling with, it shows like, well, does this person really have an understanding of how to approach these types of problems? Because you're never going to solve something in an interview. Just never. Like, don't try. Yeah. Personally, sorry, I'm just reading questions here from Anya DK in the chat because nobody's hand is up. If you want to change that, feel free to put your hand up. But follow up to the last question. I personally think it's a good idea to outsource development, especially the early stages of a company. I don't know if I totally agree with that. It depends totally on the type of product that you're building. If you're building a tech-enabled product, that can absolutely work. If you're trying to build a tech product, that's a really bad idea. Let me unpack that. A tech-enabled product is one where the core value delivery is not technology at its core. You're not building an AI answers, or you're not building a cryptocurrency exchange. You're building a marketplace where you're selling the things in the marketplace. The tech just helps you do that. So the tech enables it. A core tech product is where you're selling the actual tech IP, or the code, or the output of that code, not a product enabled by that code. And so if you're trying to outsource a core tech product, it's typically a really bad idea, because most of the IP of how you solve that problem then sits outside of your company that you don't own. And those developers will never be able to document it properly, the thousands of decisions they've made, the insights, the unique approach that they've had. And if that is your core IP, you definitely want that in-house. In the case where you're building another online store or a marketplace or like an app that does bookings or something like that, like all those problems being solved. And the difficult part, the tech problems being solved. The difficult part there is the value proposition around getting dog groomers into people's homes, whatever your app is. Like that's the business like that's a tech-enabled business, but it's not a tech business. The core, you're selling dog grooming. You're not selling like software code or machine learning algorithms. So in the tech-enabled businesses, by all means, outsource. Mr. Lalade, see how I answered that question with like, hey, this is the framework. Let me drill down to that detail. Let me go. So I went 3 levels through that answer.
Yeah, thank you.
Cool. That's what you need to try and do. And then question B is tapping into yes.
Yes,
sorry. Go ahead.
What's in? So my question was, my thought was actually that it is not a good idea, but I get the answer already from what you've explained. So I think we are kind of aligned. So yeah.
Depends, right? Outsourcing can work. It can be a lot cheaper. If what you're building is not that novel, outsourcing helps. Tapping into experience at Founders Factory Africa, what are the qualities of some great companies? There's a link slightly further up on how to build like the 10 principles behind great product teams. I can't get it more concise than that. So there are 10 principles that I would highly recommend. Like, can do a very quick screen share to end on that note if you like. When we're going there. Any other questions or thoughts? Anyone got something you would like to discuss? There we go. There are the 10 principles behind great product teams, in my opinion. Ebube.
Yeah, hi, Roger. Good evening.
So
my question was, it's like, how do you move? So I find that I spend a lot of my time, in the weeds, doing project management type stuff and running delivery. I have little time to do actual discovery work and actually like scope out items that I need discovery to scope out. So how do you, and I think part of it is because I have a pretty large engineering team. There are like 13 engineers on my team. So I constantly have to ensure that the backlog is groomed for them to have stuff to do. And I find that I default to, instead of focusing on things in order of importance, I focus on things that are easier to groom for the engineers so that, there's stuff for them to do. So how do you move one level up away from the weeds of the delivery and do more discovery type work?
Cool. My sole purpose in life at any job that I'm at is to make myself redundant. And so my question I would ask you is, what would it take for the developers to groom their own backlog? And the reason I ask it that way, whether you end up there or not, I think is irrelevant, but the framework that you need, the decision-making framework on how you prioritize and groom the backlog is a system, it's a process, right? Like how you work out what is more important, this or that, and why. Can you put that into a RICE evaluation criteria, or can you put that into some kind of level that when people are working through it, and can you add that into the backlog on the actual cards that people can sort by, or people can have discussions by, or like how do you empower the dev team to be able to act without needing to be absolutely handheld through the prioritization process? How do you develop that prioritization process that can run with like making the same decisions you would without you? And as soon as you work that out, welcome to leveling up as a PM. Like that's what becoming a senior PM or becoming executive level PM is all about, is how do you outsource people? How do you outsource your systems and process so that the value gets delivered, even if you're not guiding every step along everything in the way? So if you're feeling completely overwhelmed, what it probably means is you need to work on improving your systems and processes so that things can happen, that you buy more time to focus on the stuff that's more important for you, or that you can start looking on the more strategic stuff. So think about that, like, and answering that question of how might these developers work out what's in the backlog without me, what system would need to be in place for that to be happen? Even if you're still guiding that system, it's still going to probably save you at least 30% of your time that you were doing that. So constantly think about, how do you automate, how do you systematize the prioritization, the value that you're adding, and the more you do that, the more it's going to free you up to grow into more interesting places.
Yeah, thanks for that, Roger.
Feels like a cop-out answer. Does that actually help?
There is a starting point to start thinking about it. Yeah.
Yeah, and there will always be a fair bit of grunt work to the things. Another thing is maybe just like spend a week not doing it and see what happens. Like see what breaks, right? See how they prioritize wrong. Like try a sprint where you spend a third of the time doing it. And like actually if you spend 20% there, forget 80% of the value, is that good enough? And now you've got 80% of your time to focus on more important things. Like, I don't know. Often we get caught up in the busy work because it feels important, but it's really not that value driving. And if you're focusing on value delivery, dropping those smaller balls actually doesn't matter. Rebecca, last question for the day. Right, evening.
Okay, good evening, everyone. Thank you, Roger.
Hi.
So I've been in operations for 5 years now, and I'm just beginning to transition into product management. And it feels like there's so much information out there, and there are like a lot of resources. So it's like difficult to figure out exactly where to begin. So I really just want to know if there's a roadmap for somebody that is transitioning into a totally different, I won't say entirely different, because I still work closely with the product team as an head of operations in my company. But this time it looks like I'm just going to be owning the whole process, but I don't know exactly where to begin. So I would like to know if there's like a roadmap, and I know we will always keep learning, but I would like to know where exactly am I supposed to start from, and how I'll be able to grow in this transition.
Cool. So I'm just looking for something on the side here. I've written a blog post on this. I'm just trying to see how complete this actually is. No, there's not enough yet for me to share, unfortunately. Okay, that also doesn't help me. Okay, sorry, I was trying to cheat by finding some pre-received things. So the short answer is getting into product management is, there's so much out there. Part of the problem with product as a discipline is it is so broad. Everything from user research to UX design, product design, prototyping, customer interviews, all the way through to like Scrum, PR, Scrum managing developers, backlogs, user stories, process management, project management, going on to like product operations, analytics, data, insights, strategy, like I could keep going. And so the core of product management is the intersection of delivering value to customers in a way that makes money for business while understanding technical constraints. Like you're constantly playing between those three. And as long as you're clear on how you create value for customers, how you capture value for the business strategy, the rest just becomes a logistic exercise of what do we have now? What do we need to build? How long will that take? Is there something we can build faster? Like, do we need to spend this much time to solve that problem? Is the time versus benefit actually worth it? Like, it's really, like, there's tons of frameworks and there's approaches and different opinions on how to do that. But at its core, that's what product management is. It's the alignment of those three things. And the reason product has become this big, sexy discipline and become popular in the last sort of 5-10 years is because no other role has really bridged all three of those areas very effectively. And so that's the shift. Like, I was in operations before this as well. Like operations used to product and HR and customer support and like talking to customers and like managing what the developers are building, all used to just be operations. So it's really not such a big jump from that. And normally the part of the downside of product is because it is so broad. Part of the upside is when you're coming into product from somewhere else, there's almost always a pretty big overlap for you to build a grounding in product of those things. So for your case, it would be around a project delivery, like project management, that sort of stuff. probably, and it sounds like you've done a fair bit of like strategy and business strategy before as well. So the weakest areas for you is probably customer research, prototyping, product design, UX, UI, those sorts of things. Find a good person to rely on for that. Acknowledge that that's the area you need to work on. And really what that area covers is that customer value side of things. You've probably got the business value, and you've probably got the operational constraints and how to ship and deliver products and get things out the door.
Sure.
But what you've probably been weaker at historically in your previous roles is prioritizing what would actually be valuable to the customer, prioritizing valuable needs. So because of your bias, I would over-index on that, try and learn and upskill on that, and surround yourself with people who are really great at that. And be aware that you're going to naturally bias the stuff that you're more comfortable on. So give it more space to learn and be a bit more vulnerable in that space. But that's really the tension that I would try and deal with OU.
Okay. All right. That's great. Thank you. And I'm open to having resources then. Yes.
Cool. Yeah. Like I said, I've got a blog post on how to get into product management from ... and then I'm listing like all the different roles. But it's unfortunately it's just way too early. It's too much in my head and not enough on the paper for me to be able to share. But yeah, if anyone has great resources, Emanuela, I know you've just got into this. Feel free to share with Rebecca on stuff that you find valuable.
Thank you.
Okay. The link to the article on my screen, Emery shared it there. Thank you very much. I think that's us for now. I hope that was useful. I'm in the Slack channel too. You're welcome to tag me in meetings. Stephanie, I saw you. I think Stephanie's dropped off, but I saw her tag me there. Thank you very much for that. I hope that was useful. Let's build cool products together. If you have questions, shout. Otherwise, we'll see you in 2 weeks' time. Every second week, in between, they're doing an interview prep session. Mr. Lade, if you'd like to dig into that, that is like very much just focused on mock interviews and feedback for interviews and things. So that might be a better session. This is a more general group mentorship product questions. So we do them every 2 weeks. We alternate. All right. Thank you very much, everybody. Have a fantastic evening.
Thank you. Bye.